What is up, guys? So there was some huge news about the Arrowverse that was just released. You probably already saw in the title, but Superman is finally getting his own spin-off show along with Lois Lane. Now, this happened to come out the same time I was going to post a review for Supergirl, or a little bit before, so that's what I'm going to do in this video. Talk about the spin-off show, everything we know about it, and my thoughts about it, and then also review Supergirl. The review for Supergirl will be shorter than typical reviews. I'll go over things more rapid fire because I wanted to more focus on the Superman stuff because it's a lot more interesting. Anyway, let's just get right into my thoughts about this new TV show the CW is developing. Now, if you can't already tell, I am really excited for this. I've made several videos going over the spin-off shows I want to see from the Arrowverse. My most recent one actually got like 100,000 views, so that was awesome. But my number one, spoiler alert, was Superman. I think Tyler Hoechlin, it really embodies the character of Superman, and I think while he doesn't necessarily look as much like Superman as some other actors, I think that the way he plays Clark Kent and the way he plays Superman is the best we've seen so far out of any live-action version of the character, which is why, also on top of the fact that he is Superman, one of the greatest superheroes ever, I really wanted to see a spin-off show that was much further by the fact that Jon Cryer was even better a Lex Luthor than Tyler Hoechlin was a Superman, and I think also he was the best iteration of the character ever. So seeing those two characters on screen with a rivalry, which we will almost definitely be seeing in this show, as it would be a waste if Jon Cryer doesn't appear, that's something I am genuinely excited for. So this show, what we know so far is Tyler Hoechlin is reprising his role as Clark Kent, aka Superman, and Elizabeth Tulloch is reprising her role as Lois Lane. The show is being titled, or is being called now, Superman and Lois, or Clark and Lois, which was the title of the 90s Superman show, but I think that's just something that people are saying because they're both appearing in the show and it's focusing on both of them, but I'm guessing the show is probably going to be titled Superman. Now, additionally, we already know who the showrunner will be, as Elizabeth Tulloch confirmed that it's going to be Todd Helbing. He was actually showrunner on The Flash between seasons 2 and 5. As showrunner in season 4 and 5, the only seasons where he was the sole showrunner, as in season 2 and 3, he was with Andrew Kreisberg. In season 2, they made an excellent season. Season 3, they made an okay season. However, for seasons 4 and 5, where he served as a sole showrunner, while I don't dislike either of those seasons, it's pretty clear that those are the two least popular seasons of The Flash. Certainly ratings-wise, that is until season 6, but even with season 6, it seems already that fans, including myself, like it a lot more than the previous two seasons, which is a little bit worrying for this show considering Todd Helbing made the least two popular seasons of The Flash. And then with season 6 of The Flash, the quality seemed to go way up immediately with the new showrunner. Now, it's pretty clear that Todd Helbing left The Flash specifically to be a showrunner on Superman, and maybe he just got tired of the character, or maybe he doesn't really like the character very much. Honestly, I have no idea, but I'm definitely a little bit more optimistic than maybe I should be for this show with Todd Helbing as the showrunner, because while season 4 and 5 are not exactly popular, I don't really have as much against it as most people. Season 4, I thought that the costume was awesome, the Thinker was a good villain, and while it wasn't exactly good, it could have been if there were just a couple things that they changed here or there. And season 5 is kind of the opposite. The costume sucks, the season-long storyline is pretty good, and the villain isn't good, so it's basically the season 4 pros and season 5 pros, you put them together, you get, I think, a genuinely great season of The Flash. So maybe Todd Helbing just was almost there. So hopefully with Superman, it seems like a show that he might be more passionate about because he left The Flash for this show. Hopefully and optimistically, this show can be very good. Either way, I think Tyler Hoechlin is a great Superman. If Jon Cryer is appearing, he's a good Lex Luthor. And while I don't love Elizabeth Tulloch as Lois Lane from what we've seen so far, I definitely think she's good, she's not bad, and she definitely can be a great love interest, one of the main characters of this show, and, you know, a great Lois Lane. So overall, this show is a show that I'm incredibly excited for, and is definitely, out of the two new spin-off shows the Arrowverse is getting, this and then Green Arrow and the Canaries, this is the one that I'm much more anticipating, considering it's always been my number one, the number one spin-off show from the Arrowverse that I've always wanted to see. Oh, and I'm guessing the storyline they're going for this show is going to be based off the Rebirth run of Superman, where Clark and Lois raise their son, Jon Kent, who becomes Superboy, as Lois already gave birth to the son, or at least it's confirmed based off the time that she already gave birth to not a son but a child. It's most likely going to be John Kent, and that's most likely going to be the basis of this TV show, which is something that I'm really excited for, and I think it's something that could make for a good TV show if they find a good child actor, because if they find a bad one and he ends up being a main focus of the show, then that could be a little bit irritating. But if they find a good one, then this can definitely, I think, be a good concept for a TV show. So now my Supergirl review for Season 5, Episode 4, titled In Plain Sight. It's pretty crazy that we're getting a spin-off show of Superman from a Supergirl TV show. I mean, you probably would expect the opposite, a Supergirl spin-off show from a Superman show, but anyway, I thought this episode was by far the best episode of the season so far, and it's basically the climax between the conflict between John Jones and Ma'alefek. There is going to be more of Ma'alefek, as we saw in this episode. However, here, basically the climax of their conflict, I thought they handled it fairly well, so I'll go storyline by storyline, starting with the main one, which is involving the crisis, John Jones and Ma'alefek, also Jones. So the storyline begins, and also the episode begins, with the Super Friends trapping Ma'alefek and using a Phantom Zone projector, which ends up failing. It's not a bad opening to the episode, honestly. It's honestly a good, a kind of action-packed opening. But then, because of the failed Phantom Zone projector, Alex is very annoyed at Brainy for not fixing the projectors. This is kind of a mini storyline with Brainy, along with Nia. Again, I've said this so many times, a relationship I don't care about, because I don't care about any relationships on the show, except for one, and that's with Mon-El and Kara. However, if we're counting Clark and Lois, then that one as well, and I definitely will when that show comes out. Anyway, the storyline with Brainy was fine. The scene with Lena I thought was good. Honestly, I like it. I like it when those two interact a lot. They did that once in season 4, or whenever they talked about their boxes, which was mentioned in this episode. That was pretty good, and I like it when these two interact. So anyway, Alex is then controlled by Ma'alefek, which is something that we kind of already saw before, just 2 episodes ago when Ma'alefek shapeshifted into Alex. It's a different concept, but I really wish they either didn't use Alex for this whole thing, or didn't use Alex for the last one, as it just feels like it's the exact same thing. However, this isn't really much of a problem, as I think the scene where Alex actually confronts John Jones, or I guess Alex being controlled by Ma'alefek, confronts John about what he did to Ma'alefek, was actually a great scene, with Alex basically just going into John, telling him how he screwed up, how everything is his fault, and I really like John's reaction to this. I think this is probably his main crisis setup, and his main crisis test. It's not actually being prepared by fighting Ma'alefek, and then he has to grow stronger. It's probably realizing what he did wrong and getting past that, and also probably accessing all of his memories. I feel like that is what the Monitor is trying to get out of him. Either way, I thought this was a very good scene. So then Kara talks to John about Ma'alefek. It's an okay scene, definitely a scene that, it's not bad. It's like continuing upon the last scene, and it did a good job at that, but I really like the moment where they all realize that Ma'alefek has Alex. It's actually legitimately a little bit intense, as they all come to the realization that Ma'alefek is controlling Alex, and he has her, and then they try to find him. It's a good moment, and I really like it, and honestly, the storyline overall is really, really good, as John actually finds Ma'alefek, he confronts him, and the speech here from John trying to convince his brother to either just not shoot him long enough for him to put that thing in his ear, or to convince him to just not try to kill him or not want to. It's actually a pretty good scene, and I'm not gonna lie, for some reason this episode just did this whole storyline with Ma'alefek and John Jones so much better than the previous 3, and I think the season could have been off to a very good start had the first 3 episodes been this good, with the Ma'alefek storyline, which again is sort of crisis setup. So, with the Ma'alefek John Jones storyline out of the way, let's talk about the James storyline, a character who left the show a lot earlier than I expected. It was confirmed that he's going to leave before the crisis, but I think it would have been cool for his departure to be in the crisis as he appears, but then he dies, being one of the major casualties of the crisis. However, as it turns out, he's leaving in a much less tragic way, as in this episode, James and Kelly go to Calvin City, where James's aunt used to live, and he sees some kids doing homework in his aunt's house. He learns of the corruption of the prison, the abusive prison, I think it was, that is in the city, so he stays to help the city out by the end of the episode. Now, I never really liked James very much, considering he's literally the least comic book accurate character ever, and honestly, if they just named him Malcolm Duncan, he probably would have been a lot better, because he is literally Malcolm Duncan. They look exactly the same, and also they are both Guardians, so I don't understand why they just didn't name him Malcolm Duncan. He's a terrible Jimmy Olsen, but honestly, he wasn't a bad character, and even though I never really liked him that much, this goodbye for James Olsen was honestly ever so slightly emotional, just the way they shot it with the music, I guess, and his departure being a kind of, it's not a tragic one, it's a happy one in some sort of regard. Again, never really loved the character very much, and also he is the least comic book accurate character in the history of live action television or movies, but honestly, this departure for the character was handled very well. Then there's also the Kara/William Day storyline. Definitely I thought the weak link of the episode. It's a storyline that I don't really like, but also it's a storyline that's fairly predictable, as William Day was clearly going to end up being a good person, like 100% a good person, and he's probably being set up to be the main love interest for Kara. And it's a storyline that I'm not going to get into here because honestly there's nothing really to talk about. It was predictable, it was the weak link of the episode, and that's really it. However, aside from that storyline, I for some reason really liked this episode. The storyline with Jean and Malefak was very well acted and also kind of very well written. It's a good, I think, climax to the storyline so far, and it used Malefak in a much more interesting way than the episodes up until this point. Not to mention that the James storyline was honestly pretty good, and his departure from the show was ever so slightly emotional, so I will give this episode an 8.3 out of 10, which might not sound very high, but it is way higher than any other episode of this season so far, and it's almost kind of on par with the last couple episodes of The Flash Season 6. So anyway, in the comments down below, let me know all your thoughts about the Supergirl episode, but also, more importantly, let me know your thoughts about the Superman TV show that we're getting probably in the year 2020, which I am very excited for. Let me know if you are as well, and if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.